Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel, and welcome to the channel if you're new here. My name is Death by Pony. Today we're hopping back into Lake of Voices. Hope y'all are having a very Merry Christmas if that's what you celebrate. And if you celebrate something else, I hope you have a happy holidays. I grew up celebrating Christmas, but I know not everybody does. I want everybody here to feel included. So without further ado, let's hop into this.
That sounds like an excellent idea. And I will accompany you, of course.
Glad to hear it.
Bemele. Together we walk back towards the interior of the island. Both our moods lift as we stay side by side. Bemele and I headed through the wooded part of the island. There isn't anything that could quite be called a path, but we managed to pick our way through the bush quite well. Through a thinner strand of trees, we briefly catch sight of the guide standing on one of the beaches. He seems fine, but even though I'm sure he turned his head towards me, he makes no show of acknowledging us. It takes less time than I would have hoped for us to see all there is on this isolated place. Now we will have to spend time simply waiting, a far more unpleasant task. We seat ourselves underneath a large tree at the meeting point. There is no sign of sun setting, and I find myself becoming increasingly restless. I release a breath. I've yet to shake the dark and troubling thoughts coursing through my mind. A pat on my back grants me a moment's reprieve. It truly is just the two of us. Deep sorrow stirs inside me at the thought. However, having Bemele here with me gives me at least some comfort. I lean against his shoulder and he doesn't move to stop me. We sit together quietly as we wait for the sun to descend from the sky. The sky turns orange as sunset comes upon us. As the color seems to drain from the world, being consumed by the fog, the guide makes his appearance.
It's almost time.
I nod and feel myself grow tense. We truly are about to return to those bridges. All of us wait in an uncomfortable silence until night falls. Night settles like a shroud over the land, every inch of the world now covered in unrelenting darkness. Suddenly, there's a gurgling. The water parts as the bridge of Sinlos rises, powered by some unnatural force, creaking like they might fall apart. I feel an inexplicable pounding like a hammer in the back of my head, beating faster and heavier than my own heart. I clench my teeth to stop it from turning my stomach.
We must go now.
The guide doesn't wait for any replies, briskly starting in the direction of the shore. Bemele and I match his pace. I can feel the air weigh on us, a sensation that slows our steps despite being rested. Something hovers in my mind, the mirrored memory of the beginning of last night's journey. 1 day ago it felt like life passed. The thick, inky water sloshed reluctantly off the boards, bleeding back into the lake until finally it stills. A shudder crawls over my body as I place a foot on the boards, but I quickly shake it off. I have no other option. We have to go through this again. All tense as day-old corpse, we walk over the bridge in silence. The only sound that accompanies us is the thick lapping of the water on the bridge. Bemele stays close by my side with a sour expression on his face. He evidently has little interest in masking disgust. He murmurs something beneath his breath, but it's inaudible. Man! For a hot man, he sure does not know what to say, does he? I decide not to ask about it. It wasn't meant for me to hear. It feels as though barely any time has passed when it is explained that half the night has crept by. We encountered a few second bridges which forced us to reroute, while our paths were rotten enough to make us stagger our steps. However, the biggest threat of all is eerily absent. The prowlers. I haven't seen more than shadow glimpses of them down other paths, and even those may have simply been tricks of the fog. I feel I may be even more on edge tonight than the last. Judging by Bemele's tenses, he isn't set at ease by their lack of a presence either.
Why?
I whispered the question softly, almost silently, as I scanned left and right across the impossibly empty bridge for any sign of movement. I ponder whether they're still weary from the consuming blaze the night yesterday, or if there are less dragging themselves across the bridge than usual, because many have already gotten what they wanted. My skin crawls with the touch of icy fingers at the thought, and I can't control the sharp shiver that travels down my spine. Bemele catches my concern, brings himself closer to my ear.
This isn't right. It shouldn't be nearly this easy to cross. Not after what we went through the other night.
Could they be planning something?
Malay lightly shakes his head. He speaks with suspicion in his voice as he peers at the guide ahead.
I don't know.
As time passes by, we continue to see nothing but more bridges and fog beside me. Malay is becoming more and more agitated the longer we go without disruption. I can read Bamele well enough to know that his anger is still directed at the guide rather than the bridges themselves. It was my hope that he would be able to contain his feelings towards our lead until we had put this maze behind us, as is becoming unlikely. I resolve to step in before he grows too heated and there is yet another hazardous argument.
Your concentration is clouded, Bamele. What is troubling you?
Surely you're already aware. It's him.
Bamele glowers hatefully at the guide. I purse my lips for a moment before continuing resigned.
I do know that. However, you need to stop allowing that to consume you, or else you could get hurt. Or even...
Bamele releases an exasperated sigh while crossly folding his arms.
That is impossible. I can't stop myself from thinking about it. Everything makes so much sense now.
What do you mean by that?
Recall yesterday. I asked him why he would lead others at all if he was heartlessly going to leave them behind. What if this is the reason? Before, we could scarcely escape these monsters, and now I can't even hear a whisper of one. What if they're already satisfied with what they've taken?
Eyes widen as I stifle a gasp. The situation at hand, giving both of us a reason to think on that possibility, is absolutely unsettling, but his conclusion is even worse still. The notion of the guide allowing others to die unnecessarily on purpose to make it less dangerous for the remaining few, that is not something I was prepared for.
Even back when we started, the first time we met the guide, he mentioned that at least one of us would die before the journey was finished. Didn't that exchange seem strange to you? He said it as though it was a price to pay for coming with him. The guide is free to do as he pleases. He can and will threaten to leave the entire group behind at so much as a hint of resistance. Nothing is stopping him. He knew this was going to happen. He had to know.
I take a few moments to breathe. Despite the danger, I only barely resist shutting my eyes against the world.
We need to make it to the other side. We must keep moving forward and survive. The guide is our only way across.
Yeah, Bamele, you need to remember that. My usual reply to Bamele's worries does not make an impression. His eyes are not swayed. He continues to stare into me.
I'm saying he cannot be trusted with our lives at this very moment. I need an answer to that, Kika. What do you really think?
I didn't agree. I can trust at the end. Coming to any decision on the matter is impossible right now. There's too much danger and too many unknown account to be reached any sort of conclusion. I have no choice but to shut the conversation down. I only hope Bamele will take it seriously.
When everything is through, then we may talk about it. End of discussion.
Bamele doesn't battle me further on this issue. His face no longer retains any anger, only sorrow. He returns his gaze straight ahead. Man, this man is salty. That I couldn't, he's salty that I wouldn't say one thing or another. Like, I get he's frustrated. I would be too. Like, their whole job is protecting people, and I get that. But we need to stay vigilant right now, and if he starts getting emotional, he's gonna put both of us at risk, and if we're both at risk, we could die, and I need to be vigilant because of that. So no, Bamele, I will not say anything. Our progress continues steadily, and we still encounter no significant difficulties.
How much longer until we reach the other side? We have traveled quite a ways.
Bamele's quiet, breaking question does not sound particularly
It
enthused.
should only be another couple of hours.
Huh.
Bamele is unconvinced. It is not only I who noticed. The guide suddenly stops. Eerily, he turns his head aside to look back at us.
Is there a problem with that?
Is there?
We've progressed through the bridge at much quicker clip this time. Bimele's question was not idly curious. He was confirming that fact for himself. I should have known. The guide looks to be slightly irritated over the attitude Bimele has taken.
If you have something to say, you should say it. Unless you're afraid that I'm going to leave you behind.
His statement lands heavily on us. Did he listen to our conversation? There was no sound to cover our voices. However, I had assumed we were far enough away from the guide to keep our word to ourselves. He stared with an icy expression. I nearly freeze in place. Nellie, on the other hand, heats up and grows more hostile. He leaves my side to rush into the guide's flickering light. This is going much too far. I urge him to come back. He ignores me and takes stand facing the guide.
Am I right? Are you going to leave us behind after what I've done?
The guide isn't bothered at all by Bimele entering his space. He gives a level answer.
No.
Well, that's grand. In that case, I'd like to know if I'm on the right track about something else. Are the monsters missing because they've already eaten? Or is there some other reason why they've all mysteriously vanished?
The guide pauses for a moment. His eyes close and becomes completely still.
It's possible.
Bimele glares at the guide over the emittance. It's as though he heard nothing after the first line. The guide spoke. The guide is unfazed.
If you enter these bridges, all you should expect is death. That is no secret. You need to stop putting so much energy into finding meaning, or else you will end up like the others.
Bimele ends up speechless, caught off guard by the guide's open discussion, his accusation. The guide continues at Bimele's science, annoyance leaking into his voice.
You think that the results would have been different if only I had said more or did something differently, but that is not true. The conclusion would be exactly the same. If Lou hadn't died when he did, he would have been lost at some other point during the trip.
Lou?
Yes, Lou was his name. I had spoken with him in the past. He wanted to cross the bridges. I had deemed him unfit. He was far too desperate and unprepared. There's no helping someone like that.
The guide sounded even more agitated as he elaborates. Bimele seemed to be finished with being surprised. His anger reignites.
If that's all well and true, why haven't you died yet? How is it that you've been able to cross these horrendous bridges over and over again without suffering the same consequences as everyone else?
The guy's face twists into a vicious snarl. He shouts.
I have died! I have no life to give! Everything I am, everything I could have been, was surrendered to this lake. That is the only reason why I'm able to stand before you now. I can show you the way, and I can give you advice on how to survive the perils you will face. That is all I'm able to offer. Is that not enough for you? What else do you want from me? Kindness? Sympathy? It's been far too many years since I was capable of giving anything like that.
He finally stops to catch his breath, though the emotion in his eyes still shine intently. There is no response from either of us. An agonizing silence permeates the air. No one dares to even move. The tension is cut as the board beneath me starts to creak. My eyes dart down. The bridge is sinking rapidly. Instinctively, I jump backwards, but the new section of bridge groans horribly as it too starts to tilt into the water. They keep getting farther and farther away, each disappearing platform moving off.
Kika!
I look up at Bimele's call. My chest tightens when I see him in the guide. At what has become the other side of a small chasm, I leap back just in time as the bridge under me starts snapping like a twig, dancing over. Again, they keep getting farther and farther away. With each disappearing platform I move off. Dread creeps up my neck as I nearly lose my footing once I realize what's happening. I desperately stumble backwards, finally manage to regain my balance. I use this to leap far enough back that the bridge linen doesn't immediately start to fall apart under my weight. I am another 3 swift steps and finally on sturdy wood. The bridge reluctantly stops shifting and settling. The only trace of what was once a huge section of bridge is a few splintering boards floating in the murky water. The lake consumed it. Somehow I am not surprised. Regaining my bearings, I face what has become my circumstances. I am now separate from Bimele and the guide by a far wider gorge than anyone could leap. My throat goes bone dry as I teeter at the edge of the bridge, mind wildly scrambling for a solution that does not come. I look into Bimele's face, completely aghast, staring from one side of the bridge to the other like a panicked animal. There is no mistaking that he's desperate to help me in some way. However, there's also no mistaking that there aren't any options available to him. He turns to the guide with pleading eyes. All his earlier hostility stuck in with the bridges. I am too far off to grasp. I'm too far off to grasp what Bimeli is asking, but I get the impression he is saying if there's another way. The guide turns to me. He's completely cooled down from the earlier interactions back to his simple placid expression. Focuses back on Bimeli, who has now gripped him by the cloak. The guide says one word, judging from the look of pure terror on Bimeli's face. I can only assume it was no. There was no way back to them. The guide frees himself from Bimeli's grasp. Continue to speak. Bimeli still seems horribly shaken. His words can barely see from there, but he's quivering. As I watch to discuss my fate, unable to say anything, fear starts to crawl over me. My arms run cold, freezing. It's not long before the rest of my body follows. And as Bimeli covers his face with his hands still shutting her, the guide's voice echoes loudly across water separating me from
Go back and take the next bridge you come across that goes west. There may be enough time for you to find your own way.
I blink, taken aback for a moment before I quickly regain my composure. That's right, this isn't over. I still have my lantern with me. The prowlers are less active, and if the guide says that is possible, it could be true. I nod solemnly at his words and yell back.
I'll meet you there! Don't wait for me!
He bows his head and starts slowly backing away from the edge. Ellie pulls his head from his hand to look at me, and across the water I can tell he's crying. I smile forlornly at him as the wind whips against my back and I
You
speak
need to
softly.
go.
There's no way he could have heard me, yet I'm confident that the sentiment got across. I spin on my heels and run back the way we came, searching for bridge the guide said to take. We only hope that we all safely reunite before the night ends. I spare a brief glance behind me, however, there's not a trace of them or even the dead end I was stranded at. With a painful contracting my heart, I realize that I am truly alone now. Quickly I shake off, though, and refocus my attention on what is in front of me. The first branching path of the path comes into. I skid to a full stop in front of the path. West is as dark and desolate as every bridge. It's impossible to see what's down twisting way. The previous conversation comes floating back to me. Now that I am here, I must face the concern. Is the guide reliable? Can he be trusted? I had to leave so they could go on without being weighed down. That I don't regret, however. I can't help but wonder if the guide couldn't give me a proper suggestion because of the sinking bridge. A mistake could have been made. Also possible he knowingly gave false hope to keep the situation calm, or perhaps he intentionally sent me on the wrong path, as it would be easier for them if I did not make it. Like between the pathways, based on my direction, it does seem though other options could potentially connect me to them before the west does. Yet I cannot possibly know until I move forward. I need to make a decision. Follow the guide. No, I cannot allow doubt to take control. We've known from the beginning that there is only one path that has led travelers to safety, his. I will take the guide on his word. Without wasting an additional moment, I take my way across the west bridge. I walk a moderately brisk pace, not wanting to risk tripping or running out of energy in a moment where I need it. If the eeriness of the lake was disconcerting before, now it's overwhelming. The blizzard-like fog drifting over the waters limits my vision to the span of my arms. The utter silence was a comfort despite how the otherworldly it felt, but the whispering of the lake has started to stir now. I gulp. Despite myself, they've noticed me. Oh no! As their chattering grows, I consider briefly if the others hear them as well, or if they have come out specifically because I am on my own. I wouldn't be surprised if it was specifically because I'm on my own. That just seems like something they do. I straighten my back and walk more surely. I cannot let them believe I am an easy target. I even consider keeping my sword in hand, but it does not seem entirely likely they would realize it as something that could hurt them. I keep my mind from wandering into dark places. I count my steps like we used to in training. 1, 2, 3, 4. Despite my best efforts, things are starting to get to me. My worries wash over me, causing painful twinges underneath my clothes that makes me jerk and twitch like a fly-bitten horse. The whispering in human voices, the feeling of vulnerability, the horrible thought of being hopelessly lost, all melded together, consuming me. My pace breaks from a steady rhythm of my counting set. It quickens more as I start to succumb to fear. My brisk step turning to long, frantic strides. Something in me whispers, faster, go faster. Don't let them catch you. And I listen. I break into a run. Like moving landmines, flashes of fear explode in my mind. And drive my feet harder and faster, stronging along the path. Suddenly, my senses of reason return and I stop dead. My chest rises and falls with deep, heaving breaths as I try to calm myself down. The monsters erupt into an inhumorous chorus of what sounds like wicked laughs. I fight the urge to shout back at creatures. This feels like a nightmare I will never wake up from. I take another breath and rescue my measured progress. Even after the first crossroads, I continue with the guide's simple directions, keeping west every chance I get. I have no other hints for this labyrinth. It's difficult to tell how much time has passed. It must be at least an hour, judging by how much energy I've expended. Since I recomposed myself, I have not stopped walking for a second, despite how much time has worn on. The route still feels like an endless abyss. Then I hear a noise which causes a shuddering chill to creep down my spine, an uneven clicking, followed by a squelching sound. It's a prowler. I immediately turn to look behind me. Oh no, honey. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, hit like, that way you know you're enjoying the content I'm making, or hit subscribe. That way YouTube brings you back your so-apps next. And again, I hope you guys have a very happy holidays, and get to enjoy whatever you do around this time of year. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.